Hey everyone, just got my hands on the new game animation sample update. Um, I'm actually having a lot of fun with this update. It's pretty nice. So if you go to this gravity zone, it doesn't really do anything until you hit the space bar. Then you start floating. So I figured that I would try and figure out how to make it to where it automatically floats as soon as you enter the gravity cube without having to press anything. So the first thing that we need to do, we just need to make sure, first of all, that you have the update. If you don't have the update, you can actually go over to your um, Epic Games. Let me see if I can pull it up so I can show you what to do. So on your Epic Games launcher, you can go over to the game animation sample, and next to it, for some reason, I didn't get the update, but if you click on this little arrow next to it and remove local content, then it will allow you to update it. And then whenever you load it in, it'll be the correct one. Um, it didn't work for me, and it also wasn't showing in Fab Marketplace as well for some reason. So, but doing that, removing the local content and then updating it, I was able to get into the game animation sample. So whenever you actually get in, it loads the actual the level, the regular default level. You have to actually go into the ragdoll level. So this is the ragdoll level here. Okay, so first thing, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a tutorial on this gravity zone here. So if we go have the gravity zone selected, and we go over to the edit blueprint button right here, this is what it will look like. So when the player overlaps the gravity zone, then it will set the override for the gravity. Um, Basically, what we want to do is we want to apply an upwards velocity once we enter the cube, and then reset it as we go back down. So we're going to start off by creating a new function. Um, Here in the function, we're just going to click the plus. This will be floating gravity. The floating gravity is going to need an input, which will be a float, and this will be our height velocity. So how high we want to go as soon as we enter the gravity cube, the gravity zone. Um, okay, so we also need a a boolean as well. This will be is inside gravity zone. So once we're in the zone, we'll be able to tell that. So we'll drag this out. So we're going to get a branch off of here. So this is basically saying if we're in the zone, then do something. Otherwise, don't do anything. So when we enter the zone, what we want to do, we need to get a reference to our character. So this will be, we're going to get player pawn, because the ragdoll character is actually a pawn and not a character. So then we do cast to sandbox mover ragdoll. This will plug in there. We do need to do one more thing. We need to actually go into the ragdoll character, which is in the blueprints folder, and then under mover ragdoll. We need to add a component here. So you're going to click add and type in floating pawn movement, and then you're just going to add the floating pawn movement in here. You can also click it down here in the components window, and then on the right hand side in the details panel, you can change it to these settings. I have max speed set to 2000, acceleration set to AAA8, deceleration set to 1000. And these are just values that I thought would work good. Okay, so now that we have that, we can actually get the floating pawn movement. And with that, We're also going to need a character mover, I think. So let me do that. Character mover. Get character mover. We have both of these on the floating pond movement. We need to set velocity, but we don't want to use this one. We actually want to use the one that is on the movement component, set velocity. That's the one we want to use. So what we want to do here is we want to get actor, we can actually click this again, sorry. Get actor up vector. So this is going to get the upwards vector of our zone, of our gravity zone. So in here, we're going to multiply this, and this will be multiplied by our height velocity. We need to right click the pin and select float, then try to look for height velocity. There it is. Okay, height velocity multiplied by the up vector, that's going to give us our velocity here. Before we do that though, we actually need to tell, before we set the upwards velocity, we actually need to, off of the character mover, we need to cue the next movement mode. And so what that is going to do is it's going to tell us once we enter the gravity zone, we are going to set the movement mode to falling. So basically the character will start flailing like he's falling as soon as you enter, which will give that floating effect. Then we can set our velocity after that. Compile save. Let's go back over here to the event graph. So on the event graph, we're going to move these over a little bit because we need to set our gravity zones. So once we overlap the gravity zone, we are in the gravity zone. And then when we leave the gravity zone, we need to set it to false. So we're no longer in the gravity zone. Then we need to call that function that we just made. So on the event tick, we are going to call floating gravity. Floating gravity needs a height velocity. I found like 300 to be the best height velocity. If we compile and save that, we should be able to test it out and make sure that it works. So once we enter without touching anything, it should just automatically start floating. And then whenever it leaves, he stops floating. Perfect. And this even works even if you jump first, then it'll start floating even from there. So it just looks a lot better. So basically this is now actually a gravity cube, because before I was able to just walk right into it and then I have to press the space bar in order to get it to work correctly. Now as soon as you enter it, it actually forces the player to go up. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Stay tuned for more tutorials. This is just a small tutorial that I had. I just downloaded this, so I'm hoping to look at a lot more different things to do with this new update. All right, thank you so much. Have a good one.